Ask our fire chief if he wouldn't mind to lead us in our invocation.
Thank you very much. Please pray with me. Our wise and loving Heavenly Father, let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health. We need to fulfill the need to fulfill our callings and the sustenance, and for our friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you as well for the freedom to embrace you. Thank you for loving us, even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, I pray tonight, dear Lord, for our mayor, our vice mayor, our elected officials, city administrators, and for this assembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern among the conflicting interests and issues of our times. Grant them a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, and the personal peace in their lives and the joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them tonight. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Mount Juliet. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. If you stand and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sir, thank you for doing that. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular scheduled board meeting from March 22nd. Is there a motion? All right, have a motion. And second, the item is on the floor. Any corrections, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. That passes unanimously. Next item is citizen comments. If you will come forward to the podium, I will recognize you for 3 minutes. You can speak on any subject you wish before the Board of Commissioners. I'd ask that you lead off by stating your name and address for the record.
I'm Daniel Preston. I live 612 Foster Lane, Providence Landing in Mount Juliet. I have 2 items I'd like to bring up. One is we have a major traffic problem at the intersection of South Rutland Road, and Providence Trail. This is during the school hours when parents are dropping off or picking up their kids. They do not give you an opening if you're on South Rutland Road trying to make a left turn. Car after car after car will block the intersection. I have sat there for as long as 10 minutes and been late to a doctor's appointment. Something needs to be done. I have been told at one point there was considered maybe making that a 3-way stop. But people are going to stop and they're going to pull right on. They're afraid somebody coming down South Rutland Road is going to get in front of them. That's point number 1. Number 2, we had requested through our homeowners association, of which I am president, to hold an event in which Nothing Bundt Cakes was going to come, put up a tent, and sell their cakes. This was requested by one of our residents in our neighborhood. We went through the process. We got all the information filled out. I brought it over to City Hall in February. Sign out front. Lobby's closed. Call this number. I called that number. It rang 15 times. And nobody answered. It never went to voicemail. I left. I took all the paperwork to the lady at Nothing Bundt Cakes. She emailed everything. Everything got approved. Bad weather, snow. On the weekend we were supposed to do this. So we reapplied to do it again. And were rejected. Because apparently it's against the city ordinance to sell a product at a community gathering like that. All we were going to do was provide them space in the parking lot of our swimming pool for 3 hours for anybody that wanted it in the community, wanted to come by and buy a bundt cake. We were turned down by the city because apparently it's against city ordinance. That's harming our local small businesses. If we deny that, if we deny them the ability to come and set up when a community wants them to sell a product. If they give it away, they can be there all day long, but not to sell. I wish this council, this commission would look at that and change that because it's hurting small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Bill Robinson, 1640 Tate Lane, Mount Juliet. I just want to speak to the ordinance that's proposed tonight to amend the commercial zoning on Lebanon Road. And I'd like to reiterate some things we've said in the past, that really by doing the residential adjacent property, there's so much land adjacent to the commercial property on Lebanon Road now where it's already there that really it in effect does the same thing as the previous ordinance does, only in a more limited way. So I just wanted to express my concern about passing this to limit that zoning, and would appreciate you guys considering that respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, seeing no more for citizen comments, we will close citizen comments, move on to commissioner reports. Vice Mayor and District 1 Commissioner, Commissioner Justice, you, sir, are recognized.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I think everybody remembers the flood that hit. We just had a meeting about that flood, and there were numerous businesses that have been affected up near the Valley Center. The numerous residents that were affected over in Belinda City Villages area. You come into my district, which is a different basin, which is the Cedar Creek Basin. And we had some flooding that occurred over off of Nautical Road in that area, some of the homes over there that were along Cedar Creek. And of course, the big one that is constant is the ballpark, what's formerly known as the Little League ballpark. It's no longer the Little League ballpark. That name has been changed for quite a few years. Just nobody remembers the change. They just remember the park. I'm on the board of directors on the park over there. Of course, it's a nonprofit. It is not a city park. It is run by a board of directors of 21 people. And those people serve for free. There is no pay to anybody but a park administrator over there and the groundskeepers and such. And we were hit hard. It was on television, 2, 4, 5, 17, several of them. And in the process of all that, I saw what I knew to be, what I knew was going to happen, and that is that the people who live here in Mount Juliet stepped up and they came to the ballpark and they had rakes and they had shovels and they had towels. Commissioner Heffner was down there. Commissioner Mullally, these two gentlemen came down to the ballpark. Commissioner Trevette came down. Everybody came down to look, to figure out what could be done. Of course, we're in a floodplain, so guess what happens when you're in a floodplain? You get flooded. Been a lot of talk about why the city does not own that ballpark, and there's a good reason why that we don't, as a city, own a ballpark over there. It's because we don't trust the government to run it the way it needs to be run. That's one of the reasons I ran for office from Jump Street back many years ago, was that I don't have a mistrust of government. It's not the most efficient way of conducting business, and we all know that. But what I will tell you is that every time that there has been an opportunity for this city to help, and I say city, I'm talking about the community that is Mount Juliet, not necessarily the government, there's been massive numbers that have turned out to come out there, and that's exactly what we saw the other day. We had our work day, And at the end of that day, John Dranowski, our board president, is here, and he could probably give us a little better idea. But the sheer numbers that came out to help us get that park back up and get closer to running was amazing. And it is one of the reasons that I love this city. It's one of the reasons I love this community. When I ran many, many years ago, I told people, no, I don't represent the city of Mount Juliet. I represent the people that live in the city of Mount Juliet. That's never changed. And what I have seen as a result of the tornado and what I've seen as a result of the flooding just reassures me that I'm raising my kids in the best place that I could ever think to raise them. And that's in Mount Juliet. So for those of you that came out and helped us put things back together or get us closer to that point, I want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of the board of directors. I'm speaking, I think Mr. Dowsey's in the back. I'm going to speak for the board here, John, and say that we all thank the folks in this community that is Mount Juliet for coming out and helping us. It was amazing. It was wonderful and truly thankful. We are blessed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to District 2, Commissioner Trevette.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Man, actually down there, Ray, it was interesting to see the before and after, and just again, I want to reiterate with that. This community, this city is amazing. I actually got a chance to experience a little bit, with our city here in Hickory Hills. We had a car fire, and then be able to see our first responders to react to that right there from the police department showing up, well, actually from the dispatchers to the police department. And then of course, and the firefighters coming in, addressing this car, in condos, you're looking at potential, more hazards, and just to be able to see the teamwork that our first responders have. And then of course, the community, that we live in, it's just, we're all very blessed. So I do want to, thank everyone for, for their first responders last week on that. And then also the families that came out tonight to express their concerns on, the flooding with some of their homes. I didn't get a chance to mention that and just thank them because, again, with this board right here, most of us are all very new to being part of this team here. And we want to be able to address, the concerns and do what we can do, to help out. So that's all I have, though, for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. We will move on to District 3, Commissioner Heffner. You, sir, are recognized as soon as there.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. 200-year floods?
No,
500-year floods in 11 years, roughly.
That means there are 200 people.
Yeah, the city has gone through a lot. I went out the very next morning. I visited with a lot of the businesses, many of the owners over at the Valley Center, City Center, and my heart goes out to them. Some of them are not going back. They're done. Several stores I've already see for lease signs up. It's gut-wrenching. It was. I did get an opportunity to go by the ball field and take a look at that. I walked in the bathroom, and the weed line was approximately 5.5 feet up the bathroom wall. A lot of the damage was fencing, dirt, and it couldn't have happened at a worse time. Baseball season, I believe, had just started or was in the process of starting. So to be able to get out and rally and get donations to fix that, it was. I believe there's still a GoFundMe account going up, but in any event, I want to thank the first responders. I know Chief Luffman, he actually had his waders on, and I saw him carrying a boat at one point. I saw, I think, a picture of him rescuing some folks in District 3. We had some bridge damage. We had roads that were out. I want to thank Public Works, Andy Barlow. I believe they were only out for about a week, maybe a week and a half. So I was impressed by just the shortness of time to get those roads back opened. A lot of damage over in Kelsey Glen, which we're still still dealing with. So, but as a citizen, as a homeowner, we can do little things that make a big impact. Some of the things that we can do is clean out our culverts. If we have culverts that are running underneath our driveways, let's make sure that those are cleaned out and free of debris. Also, I speak to all the HOA boards. If you have detention pond areas, please make sure that those are cleaned out and the grass is cut. Any debris, all of these things add up when you compound them. So it's some of the little things can make a big difference. So I ask that we also do our part to eliminate or alleviate any additional flooding down the road. On a lighter note, I just want to point out Kelsey Glen is having an inaugural 5K run and walk May 15th. It is free. It's at 7 a.m. And proceeds are going to go to a charity that is to be determined. And I'd like to send a friendly challenge out to anybody on the Mount Juliet Police Department and Fire Department to come out and join me. And we'll see who finishes first. So anyways, that's it.
All right. Thank you, sir. At this point, I'll recognize Commissioner Mullally in District 4.
Again, I want to thank the citizens who came out for the work session tonight. And I hear you. I think the board heard you as well. You just, we feel your frustration. I hear you. And I can't imagine getting flooded out 5 and 6 times a year. It's just continual. So I hear you. I hear your frustration. I hear you say you're tired of the status quo and you're ready to see some action. And so am I. So I want to thank Andy for bringing that work session up for the stormwater utility. I think it was worth it. I just sent my March newsletter out. You can, if you're not signed up, jennifermullally.com, you can sign up. I also post on social media, but I also email. So please sign up for the email. You don't have to be in District 4 to sign up. I have other people as well who sign up. Congratulations to Kenny for being the Employee of the Month for April. Congratulations. I think you well deserve that. I do want to say that, again, on the flooding, I've been trying to help residents that were affected about it. I've not been able to help everyone, but I try to help as I can between working. And I just would like to also give a shout out to Providence United Methodist Church. They have been amazing in their efforts to help clean up and provide resources. I want to thank Recover Wilson and their resources as well and what they've done. I want to thank Kenny for reaching out to Mayor Hutto and y'all's willingness to go through community services to provide dumpsters, because another problem is the dump site down there on Stewart's Ferry, and I guess others limit you on what you can take. So again, last year we had FEMA assistance to help with the tornado pickup. And I don't think most people understand why the city has not been able to help with the flood. It's because we have not been declared a disaster area, emergency disaster area, but we have asked or we have not heard. So, so because of that, the city wasn't able to, we don't have the resources to go around and help with this cleanup. So we have to work through community services. So I want to thank y'all for working with them and getting the dumpsters out there. That was a great help as well. And with that was all I had.
Thank you. City Manager, are you recognizing these general? Okay. Well, I'll just make my comments real quickly and then I'll let you mention that. I just see a large gathering standing outside the door there, so I will make sure they got recognized. But I wanted to add too that thank the first responders as well that worked so hard during that event. Public Works, I'm sure there were a ton of other departments out there, probably Parks Department as well, working alongside them very hard to clean up, address things, rescue people in events. You know, after it was over, I mean, just a tremendous amount of volunteers. And like Vice Mayor pointed out, it's one of the things that makes Mount Juliet the great city it is and a great place to raise a family. It's just the sheer number of volunteers. I saw them going in Valley Center from business to business, just trying to help out in any way possible. There was a lot of damage out there that, you know, we had people just showing up. So awesome experience. It's an awesome community, and I appreciate everything that people put into it because that's what makes it the community that it is. The businesses, of course, the businesses damages, the homes that were damaged. I will add to Commissioner Mullally pointed out that we took somewhat of a first steps here between looking at a stormwater utility. It's not the answer. It's not the end all answer to everything, but it is a first step to getting something rolling so that we can provide a better level of service in that as a city. There's several steps to take along the way on that, but this has got the ball rolling, and this is the furthest I've seen anybody take this beyond discussions in my time here with the city. So I will say a lot of people are taking it very seriously, and we're seeing a lot of effort put into that. But with that, that'll conclude my comments. I'll recognize the city manager at this point.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, staff, and thanks everybody that's here tonight and also those watching from home. I want to say first and foremost, thank you to the staff for recognizing me. It took me 31 years to make Employee of the Month, so I don't know what took y'all so long, but I appreciate it. But really, I didn't earn that. It's the staff that earned it, and it's the people in this city because as the mayor and the commission was talking about, and I'll say this, I'm always sort of hokey, so I'll say it because it's the truth, and I think we need more of that today. Everybody in this room and everybody that's been in this community and beyond has actually been first responders. Cap Chandler's back there, and we've got our police department here and the fire department. But in reality, since March of 3rd of last year, everybody in this room and beyond has been first responders because every time that something's happened recently and in years past, if it wasn't for volunteers, we couldn't get back on our feet near as quick because everybody was doing something to make a difference. I see that every time with our elected body, that they're out 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it takes to be out getting it done. I see it with our staff and I see it with our citizens. And that makes it, for true, just like the mayor said, a very special place to live. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I do think every community says that, but I really do believe that in Mount Juliet. I also want to commend the elected body and staff for looking into the flooding. For somebody that's been here 31 years, there's some things that were done many, many years ago in all communities where homes and businesses were built in places they really shouldn't have been built. So you find yourselves years later trying to address those issues and correct them today. And it just shows that a lot of things we did over the years weren't quite enough. But I will say this, weather events in general in the last few years have been quite unique. The 2010 flood is one of those, and you think of the flood that we just had a couple of weeks ago. So how we address those things. So I want to commend the commission for stepping up and looking at a much larger scale attack on a flooding in our community. Most of it, of course, is along the floodway streams. And I see we got Mr. Rob still here, our flooding coordinator. So we're working on that. But I just want to thank everybody for what you do. It really does mean a lot to see the folks out doing what you're doing in our community behind the scenes, not necessarily wanting attention for it, but just doing it because it's the right thing to do. So with that, thank you. But Mayor, I want to take just a moment and commission to recognize some very special young men and coaches. I asked them to wear masks because I wanted to make sure, since we were sort of exceeding our normal numbers in COVID times, to have these young men come in and get Coach Ryan Scott to come to the mic. And fellas, if y'all line up against that wall and just go as far as you can up to this monitor here, I want to brag and love on these young men a little bit. Just show you a little bit about our future and our community. But these young men and their coaches have worked really hard. And if anybody's ever been a coach, you know how hard it is to work with other people's children and have a successful season. This is basically the Tennessee Heat football team, and they do more than just football. But in this particular case, you may not have heard about them in the local papers, but it was in the papers, but probably not to the degree you would have normally with your normal high school football teams. But these basically are homeschooled young men, and they work extremely hard. They're extremely smart, but they basically are, in my opinion, the state champions. And Coach, I'll let you elaborate a little bit further, but I want to, on behalf of the mayor, our vice mayor, elected body, and every citizen in the city of Mount Juliet, let you all know just how proud we are of you. And I want to brag on Wilson Bank and Trust because we reached out to them about a scoreboard for these young men for Charter Daniels Park, because their home playing field is Charter Daniels Park, which we have a great partnership with them through the city. And Wilson Bank and Trust is stepping up and donating a scoreboard, which is the tune of probably about $18,000, so they can have a really nice scoreboard. But to let you know that I'm speaking through our entire community of how proud we are of you and how hard we know you work when you could be doing other things. You're out there hustling and practicing. So, Coach, could you tell a little bit about just how impressive these young men and the coaches are?
Yeah, thank you. Kenny, thank you so much for being recognizing us. As an organization, the Tennessee Heat has been around for almost 16 years now. We're a multi-homeschool sports platform for young men and women, middle school through high school. And I just so happen to have the privilege of being the head football coach. I'm a business owner here in Mount Juliet. I own 3 businesses. So this is something I do as a passion of mine. I was a college football player and I was poured into as a young man. And but we've had the opportunity over many years. I've been the head coach now for 5 years to see growth and also see the opportunity to be kind of welcomed in and given a home. And that's what first of all, again, thank you, Kenny. I want to thank Rocky and his staff at Charlie Daniels Park for just treating us like a great teammate, great people in the community to get to participate in this public opportunity. But this last year was really special with COVID and not knowing whether or not we were going to have a season. We got the opportunity to play a full schedule. We only had 2 other teams have to cancel for COVID reasons. So we played 11 games or 12 games. We were undefeated in the state of Tennessee in 8-man football and beat the last 2 year state champions on Charlie Daniels Park field. And so that was a real special way to start the year, and got invited to the national championship event in Panama City. We did lose there. Our 2 losses were to the 3-time repeat state champions. So these young men have worked really hard. We really appreciate getting recognized. Our organization is really trying to teach and use sports as a platform to teach young people how to really be great citizens and great contributors to the community. We have principles that we teach, like, give more than you take and leave places better than you find it. And certainly what we're wearing today, which is our shirt and our theme last year, which is hard work, that expecting great things and attempting great things is what we want to be about in our community and in all the other places that we live. So thank you guys for giving us that opportunity. We're looking forward to the project that we're working on. Can I mention that? So we were also not only given the opportunity to really love on the field that we are playing on, we're treating it. We've had so many families and parents that have skills and training to contribute to this effort, to take over the management of the 100-yard field that we're using, treating it with fertilization, and we're going to be top dressing it and just really trying to make that green piece of grass look wonderful. But also the building that sits beside it that has had quite a bit of wear and tear over the years. We've been given the opportunity with general contractors, electricians, and I'm a real estate broker here locally, and just a lot of business relationships, people that are donating thousands and thousands of dollars, just like Wilson Bank and Trust, to help us with this project to refurbish and restore that building and make it a wonderful place to not only for our group to use, but hopefully other groups in the community that can benefit from it. We recognize that homeschooling is not for everybody, but it's wonderful to be recognized and have a home in Mount Juliet. We've bounced around in different cities, and we just really love the fact that Mount Juliet is a place where we can settle in and really be who we are. So thank you.
Yeah, I told all the guys make sure their hair looks good. I said, because this is archived forever and people can watch it all the time. So they got pretty pumped about that. But we are proud of you. And what they're going to be basically doing at Charlie Daniels Park is when you go there, sort of like when you go to Cumberland University or even Titan Stadium, you're going to know when you pull into the park that that's their home. And they're going to do it up pretty cool. So we're really proud of you guys. We appreciate you taking your evening, come out here and be recognized, and so we can see you and congratulate you.
Thanks.
Coach, I'll talk to you real soon. I appreciate you.
Looking forward to it, Kenny.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
sir. I think Vice Mayor has.
First of all, as a coach of 30 some odd years in the baseball organization and the football, thank you for everything you do, because I know that's a lot of work. And you will start out loving these kids, and at some point in time, you really want to just beat them. I do get that. The other thing is, welcome to Mount Juliet.
Thank you.
I would ask that if you would do me one favor.
Yes, sir.
In Mount Juliet, we have a way of saying it. Okay, it's Juyet. Okay. So you're saying Mount Juliet, which would indicate that you're from somewhere else. Well, now you're home, so you got to say it the way we do. Okay.
You got it.
Juliet.
It's Juliet. All right. When I first, if I can say one thing, when I first moved here, I'm from Southern California, so I've learned a little bit of how to talk a little bit better here. But I couldn't figure out where Shovel, Tennessee was for the
Shelbyville.
Shelbyville. I
Yeah,
later
it's
learned it was Shelbyville.
Shelbyville.
Shovel. But
And Lebanon.
But I will make sure to work on my way of pronunciation. But thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, thank you and Commissioner for the extra time for recognizing these young men. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. There's one other items, and I may have overlooked it, or I guess a better way of saying it is I should have probably covered it during my time, but I do have a proclamation here for Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And It's a group of individuals in this city. It's the first point of contact when you're having a lot of times your worst day. So they're there. They handle. We got 40,000 emergency calls that they're handling each year. And, this is just an opportunity. April 11th through April 17th, Public Communicators Week here in the city of Mount Juliet. I'd like everybody that would, to keep and we call them our dispatchers here, to keep them in mind. Deputy Chief Mullins, would you or anyone on your staff like to say anything?
Just to be brief, but we appreciate the mayor, vice mayor, and board of commission supporting this proclamation for our dispatchers. They truly do quite a bit. They answer that first call for service. They have a lot of stress as they talk to whomever on the phone to work them through their issue, to ensure that our police and firefighters get on the scene, but then they also then worry about those police and firefighters on the scene to be sure that they're okay. So we appreciate all that they do. We're going to bless them throughout the week, and just thank you again for supporting each of our dispatchers in the city of Mount Juliet. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. With that, we will move on to the regular business portion of the agenda. We have no unfinished business on the consent agenda, so we'll move into unfinished business. I'll read this first item onto the record, which is item 9.1, an ordinance to rezone to single-family residential RS20 and multifamily residential RM8 planned unit development and adopt the preliminary master development plan for Wintry Pine subdivision being located on Nonneville Road, map 49, parcel 747676.01 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson, Tennessee. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motioned and seconded. The item is on the floor for discussion.
I met with Andy and Rob Ewey today and Joe Haddix, and Tom White on the Wintry Pines about the flooding from 2 weeks ago, because a portion of that is in the flood zone, floodplain. There's a difference I learned between a flood zone and a floodplain and a storage area. So anyway, we got all that ironed out, and I would just like Andy to come up, or Rob to come up, one of y'all, to come up and read the points from the 8 points from the meeting.
Let's recognize the Public Works Director,
Okay.
Mr. Andy Barlow.
Yeah, this mic works. Certainly. And so some of the concerns were on, obviously, this property backs up to Cedar Creek, which has floodplain, and they're looking for floodplain alterations as a result of that. So Rob Ely, our floodplain administrator, in conjunction with myself, addressed some of these concerns. And so I believe that everyone at the table here was provided with this, but I can read through them. So for the record. So we have 8 conditions of how to address this. Number 1, I'll start with that. Wintry Pines can begin construction on all phases outside of the cut-fill floodplain area. However, construction may not start on any phases involving floodplain cut or fill before a conditional letter of map revision based on fill, we call that a Clomer F, has been approved by FEMA. All approved cut material must be adjacent to the floodplain or in a floodplain. A no-rise, that'd be a 0.0 foot study, shall occur on any adjacent property to Wintry Pines. All adjacent property must show a no-rise impact from this new development. Property shall be defined as land and or structure on any of the adjacent properties as defined by the metes and bounds on record at the Wilson County Register of Deeds. The study shall be submitted and approved by the City of Mount Juliet before a Clomer F may be applied and signed off on. A conditional letter of map revision based on field study will then be submitted to FEMA, and the Clomer F must have FEMA approval before grading work can begin. Upon the completion of mass grading, a Lomer F, that would be a letter of map revision based on fill, that's post-construction, must be applied for and approved by FEMA. All roads in cut fill areas of wind tree pines must be elevated to at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation, that's BFE, base flood elevation, or as Mount Juliet Code defines, if a higher regulation exists. This is to further aid in the flooding safety of the neighborhood for years to come. But all additional comments apply that were previously approved at Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners first reading. Additional compensation, if any, will be authorized by the Director of Public Works at a later date.
And I just want to say that I give a shout out to Andy and Rob, because this is a perfect example of how, as a city, we can be proactive to eliminate some of these situations that we're dealing with now, that in these older neighborhoods that have been there forever, who are suffering from, flood. And I know there's other areas out around the city too. So it's just the perfect opportunity to be proactive, and that take the right measures and do what we need to do on the front end. So with that said, I would like to motion to adopt these 8 points.
I'll second. Any discussion or debate on the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously with 4 members at the table. I'll echo what you just said. Thank all the parties involved in getting that knocked out for us. That's a good win. Yes, sir. Commissioner Heffner.
So I've been meeting on and off. I don't know how many meetings it's been. I lost track. With Wintry, the representatives, the owners, attorneys. What I'm going to cover is the financial aspect of Wintry and what the city's going to do and what we're not going to do from a financial standpoint. As far as the estimated cost for the pump station, that's been stated, it was $1.6 million. I've heard anywhere from 1.3 to even north of 1.6. For the purposes of this, it really, from the city standpoint, it really doesn't matter what it costs. Here's what the city is willing to contribute, and I'm going to list them out each individually. So the city, what I propose is we have a $300,000 maintenance funding that is, and Andy, you can speak a little bit more to this. So it's $300,000 that we already have set aside to repair or potentially replace in 5 years the existing pump station. What I'm proposing is the $300,000 we have earmarked for that is given to Wintry as a contribution towards the pump station. The other point is I'm proposing that we pull off the table for the requirement to build a restroom at the Frisbee Golf Center, which is a requirement that we had originally placed on them. So the estimated cost for that bathroom is $300,000. So I'm asking that get removed. The third piece is we have equipment that we've already purchased for the existing pump. So what we'd like to do is I would like to propose that any salvageable materials of that equipment, and only as approved by the Engineering and Public Works Department, be donated to the developer to be used at the pump. Estimated salvage costs of material equipment is around $300,000. So what we're looking at is $900,000 either by cash contributions, equipment, and or waivers of the bathroom. So $900,000 is a good chunk of change. And even at the estimate of $1.6 million, that's more than half of the cost to get this pump station built. So the impact that Wind Tree will have on the pump station is roughly 45% capacity. And Andy can correct me on that, fact check me. So I think it's the logic and reasoning to come back with my numbers where I got to that point. In addition to the voluntary contribution, it's $2,500, and that will be earmarked specifically for transportation. One final, the pump station should be completed and operational by the 50th certificate of occupancy, 50th CO. So Mayor, motion to approve, motion to adopt.
Okay, the 20, just, I'll second that so we can discuss it.
Okay.
The $2,500 for transportation is already captured in the ordinance.
Okay.
That's item number 16 under Public Works. The 50th CO, I don't believe is. And the 300. So we've got $900,000 equivalent, and that's coming from equipment, restroom, waiving. This is a public restroom. For anybody wondering what we're talking about, restroom, that was part of the green space. It's waiving that requirement. The other one is $300,000 in maintenance that the city was going to use on, or had budgeted for a pump station that will be eliminated by this. So this is kind of working together to arrive at the same thing. So your motion is 900,000, counting that 900,000 part of the cost, and be completed by the 50th CO.
That's correct.
Okay.
I know that we voted on that 2,500, but you had brought up at one point, Mayor, that $500 of it could be used for the construction of the pump station if needed.
I proposed a $500 credit
Credit.
to go to be applied with the $1,000 that they are proposing to collect. So that would be a total of $1,500 in addition to that that's collected for the pump station project. I think that involves some escrow accounts to be collected outside of the city to retain that money. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I did.
All right. Andy, will you talk about that $500 and what we talked about in the meeting today about the escrow and how that is a problem? And
Yes, certainly. So we've dealt with some development agreements in the past, escrow accounts in particular. There's occasions where it can be okay, but when you get into per lot contributions that go into an escrow account and the city's a party to that, a developer's a party to that, and you have builders putting money into that, it gets very cumbersome for staff. And so it's not anything that I recommend going forward. In this instance, this would be the city taking on money from basically a home builder to go to a developer. My opinion of that would be that would need to be handled absent of the city's involvement as a private party matter. Their funding that the developer would have for the pump station itself, as long, they can work out those agreements with the home builders individually, absent of the city. So there's no real need for the city to be involved in that from an escrow account standpoint.
Let's do that. We've got a motion that's seconded and on the table right now. If there's no one opposed to those items and wants to discuss those anymore, let's vote on those and get those on the record, because I'd like to come back to the escrow separately.
okay, so we're not voting on the 2,500 because that's already been voted
That's
on.
already in the.
But we're
ordinance.
voting on the 50th CO with the pump station and the 900,000. Is that what's on the table?
Correct.
Okay.
Is anybody opposed to just voting on those now? Are all in favor of those items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, those four are adopted. If no one has any objections, I'd like to hear from the developer. They had proposed a way of doing the escrow without the city necessarily being involved with the collection of the funds.
Mayor, members of the commission, my name is Tom White. I'm an attorney with Toon Entrican and White, and I've appeared before the city on a number of occasions. I appreciate this privilege. And at the front end, I just want to really appreciate the staff of the city that met with us today. It took a good deal of time, and I've mentioned this to several of you in advance, but Kenny Martin was kind enough to get everybody here in the room, and it was a very productive conversation. A couple of things came out of that. One, the stormwater issue, which was a very significant issue, was one that was discussed. Probably 3/4 of that meeting was on that issue. And it was very productive, and the engineers ended up on something that, as I've commented, was above and beyond what the city generally requires, but it was a proactive step moving forward about the road being a foot higher than required. I just think that's good sense. That's what these type of meetings are all about. With respect to the dollars and the disagreement that I have with what was in past proposed about the 2,500, it's this. The city has dealt with escrow agreements before, and Andy in part made the same comments at the meeting today that he did tonight. And I want to comment that for those of us that were involved in the agreement on that escrow, that was me and former mayor and Gino Marchetti. Charles, you're here tonight, so you know, taking a hit on that one. But we all agreed to that, and it became very difficult to track it as time went by. Not so difficult for me and those that set it up originally, but for the city staff, it became difficult. And actually, within the last 30 months, after almost a decade, we've shut that escrow agreement down and it's been resolved. But when Andy made that comment today, I said, there's two things that I would like to ask the group to consider today. And Commissioner Mullally was in the room, and due to the sunshine law, she was the only one here. But I'm repeating what I said then. And that is that I had heard comments by members of this commission, justifiably, that the cost of the pump is, as Commissioner Heffner said, kind of insignificant to the city. That's the owner's responsibility. So there had been some discussion about if it went above $1.6 million, there might be some monies coming back out. I think that's kind of a circular activity, because at the end of the day, the pump is my client's request, although I want to say it's a very significant asset to the city for property way beyond Wintry. But having said that, the ultimate number on the pump station is my client's responsibility. So I stated that in the meeting today. I'm stating it here tonight. When I heard Andy's comments about the escrow, my comment was we should cut to the chase and just say that $2,000 would go to the city. The other $1,500 would basically be put in a separate escrow account the city would have no involvement with. There's a title company in Mount Juliet that would do that. And so when a biller came in specifically with the $3,500, $2,000 would go directly to the city. The other $1,500 would go into this escrow account stubbed Wintry pump station. It would be handled by that, the money used specifically for that. Whatever the cost ended up being is my client's responsibility. But if you did that, it eliminates the city's unnecessary involvement in an escrow agreement. And if we want to comment about precedent, there's precedent for deviating from the 2,500. A number of the members of this commission were present when we approved the development that included Phil Smart, Harry Johnson, and others. There was a $1,500 fee per the multifamily units, not $2,500. And in this case, you've got every reason to go with $2,000 in light of the fact that there is a significant benefit to the city beyond the Wintry development. And one of the last comments that was made when we left the meeting today, and I shared this with Commissioner Heffner because I went to his offices when we were through just to make sure he understood what took place in the meeting. And he'll tell you that although he didn't agree with everything, he appreciated us going over there and just explaining what our logic was. And we were clearly trying to put an end to this matter that had been deferred a couple of times and get approval tonight. But I wanted to give credit to him and others that said the city shouldn't be responsible for anything beyond $1.6 million. I wanted to recognize Andy's comments with respect to the escrow agreement being an unnecessary item here for the city. It doesn't need to be involved. And with respect to the equities here, I think it's very clear with the benefit way beyond Wintry, and the comment by several as we left the meeting that the proposed development on this site is a huge plus for the city of Mount Juliet, a huge plus. And I made that comment in total, not just to Jennifer Mullally, but to Commissioner Heffner when I left his office today. Everybody agrees to the benefit of the project. So with that said, my request, Mayor, is that on this last vote, the motion be that there be $2,000 to the city, $1,500 goes into concurrently an escrow account every time the money's paid in. It'll be put in an escrow account with a title company here in Wilson County. specifically designated for this pump station. That's our request. And if I said anything differently to either Mr. Heffner or Jennifer Mullally, I don't think I did. If so, they'll correct me. But my request is that this motion be what I have stated, and that is the payment of $3,500 is specifically $2,000 for the city, $1,500 in escrow with the title company for the pump station.
Just a
Yes, sir.
procedural question on that. The payment to the escrow account, that would be done prior to coming to the city. So the city would be totally out of the loop on that.
Totally out of it. It
Okay.
would be a concurrent payment though, Mayor, where the 2,000 and the 1,500 are paid at the same time. So the city would know the money's been there in this escrow account specifically only for the pump station at Wintry. That's our request. I think it makes good sense. You're not setting any precedent. You're using some equity, in my opinion, which I think is very appropriate here. So if I've said something differently to either Jennifer Mullally or Scott Heffner, they'll correct me, but I think that's very clear what we requested today.
So they would just bring basically a receipt to the city that it's been paid.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'd do it every time, and I don't know how many permits would be obtained at a time, but immediately upon receipt of those monies, that would be brought
Can
to
I
the
ask
city.
the city manager to weigh in on that process?
Yes, sir. My understanding is they bring the receipt here. Of course, we clear that with staff, and then Ms. Sheila would keep that for the record. And there'd be a copy on file, of course, as well with permitting and the various departments.
Is that a doable process or?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mayor, I would like to add, if we'd done it the other way, it'd been much more complex and troublesome. This way is much simpler. It's just a matter of just proving that they've paid the amount, and then staff just goes from there with the approvals.
Okay.
Or permitting.
Yeah, Commissioner Heffner?
So a lot of numbers thrown around, but I did take good notes. So let me boil it down. So what you're asking for is the builders to pay $1,500 to go towards the pump stations, which 423 houses, that comes to $634,500. You add that to the $900,000 the city's already kicking in, that's $1.5 million. Are you guys planning to put any money towards this pump station?
Yes, and let me answer that specifically. One is, at a minimum, it's the gap between the $1.5 million and the $1.6 million. That's $100,000. More importantly, as I discussed with you today, in my opinion, the monies that are being paid are going to be paid by my client, the landowner. And I'll just answer this. I might disagree with you, but I want to answer you as I did today, and that is, I represent a lot of builders and developers. When these builders go in to acquire a lot from my client, they're going to be aware of what's being paid here, and they're going to negotiate a discount for those monies. That's the way it happens for every builder that I know, local, national, et cetera. So when you make the comment that the builders are paying all this money, they're not. My client, the landowner, is paying the money, in my opinion. And at the other end of the deal, at a minimum, there's $100,000, the gap between the $1.534 million and the $1.6 million. So my comment is my client clearly is bellying up here.
Well, to that point, so yes, the $500 that you're wanting to come out of the transportation volunteer, that makes up your difference. So there's $211,000. So that gets you over the $100,000 gap. As far as the builders are reimbursing, your client is putting the money up front. Let's be clear about that. And the builders are, by way of this $1,500 escrow, is paying your client back.
Mr. Heffner, I probably disagree with that, because what I see happening, I'm making up a number. If a lot might be negotiated at $80,000, that builder, and some of these builders on this site, I didn't know from my client who they are. As I said, these are probably clients of mine. But at the end of the day, they're going to approach the landowner and say, oh, here's the money that's going to be paid in, and we're going to deduct that from the purchase price. So in my opinion, my client's basically paying for all of it.
I respectfully disagree. My suggestion, like I mentioned today, rather than go through all these financial gymnastics with the city getting involved and doing escrow accounts, put the $1,500 towards your lot, just bake it into your lot price. I mean, the builder's going to pay for that anyways.
And we respectfully do not want to do that. And we respectfully do not want to do the escrow agreement that involves the city. We want to do the separate agreement as mentioned today.
I understand you don't want to, but that's what I'm recommending you do
I respectfully understand your position, and I'm just suggesting to the other members of the commission that our request is to do this. And for discussion purposes, I wish someone would at least consider that as a motion. And as I told you today, it's the majority of the votes here that carry the day. But I think it makes sense that after the dialogue today, we tried to use some good common sense, got the stormwater issues totally addressed, which were very significant, and the client went above and beyond what was ever required by the city. That ought to be considered. That's a cost factor. They did that. No equivocation. They were all read in these 8 numbers by Andy. The second issue is I listened to Andy today and I started thinking, the architects of that issue on the escrow were me and Gino Marchetti and Mayor Haggerty and others some years ago. It was a great concept, but at the end of the day, ended up being a very difficult thing for the city to handle. So, and finally, at the end of the day, I think it's a good equitable resolution, and that's why I'm requesting that the commission approve that as opposed to what was suggested by you. And I'll answer any questions. Joe Haddix is here. But I think it makes good sense, and it's certainly a commitment by a local landowner. It's not some other person flipping the property here. This is a local person with an excellent reputation and good commitment to the community. I think it ought to be considered. So appreciate your courtesies and especially allowing us to meet with you today, Mr. Heffner, after we're a little bit later than expected, but thank you.
Well, I think these projects are oftentimes give and take on both sides, and we want to do what's best for a community long-term, avoid risks to the taxpayers on that. We've seen a lot of good things come from this as far as proposals, especially with the work with the floodplain, traffic improvements, road improvements through there. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion at this point that we strike item 16 under the public works item, which is the developer offered a $2,500 volunteer contribution, which we earmarked for transportation. Reword that to say the developer will pay a $2,000 voluntary contribution to be earmarked for transportation, and then add a $1,500 per lot contribution to be paid to an independent escrow account. That'll be striking. So essentially strike the 2,500 and replace it with a 3,500 requirement. Is there a motion? That's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's on the floor for discussion.
Can we get Andy's input on the disagreement between Tom and Scott?
I think ultimately it boils down to $500 per lot. The idea there is that the escrow, of which we would not be a party to, would be paid from the builder to the developer. And so the idea there is that the builder would be doing that. And so more or less, I think the question before you all and what you're debating, I think with the motion here, is that we would be revising the $2,500 to transportation and reducing that to $2,000 for transportation, with the assumption that there would be some effort in there for sewage facilities, I believe. So as a administrator of my department, obviously more funding is better. But I would always, any money we have, I mean, we have millions of dollars in capital projects for sewer and for transportation, tens of millions. So I would never turn down additional funding to go towards transportation projects. So it's up to y'all on that. However, but I think the question boils down to, do we want to consider the sewage facilities cost and in reduction that basically they're taking these capital improvements on? Is that worth a reduction of the 2,500 down to 2,000 or not?
I amend your motion to say that if it comes in under budget, that $500 goes back into the voluntary contribution to go toward transportation.
I'll second. I'll second that. And there's no objection then. So
It's good. That really was.
let's, any other discussion on that amendment to the amendment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Back on to the amendment as once amended.
I opposed.
Oh, sorry.
You didn't call for the,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had signified yes.
No, I
So
did
it's
not.
3-1. So it's 3-1 to capture any of the unspent funds back to the city. All right. So the motion as amended once is on the table. Any other discussion on that? Yes, ma'am.
Did you just vote on the $500 or
Yeah,
did
that's
you
what I
vote
was-
on the 2K?
We were voting on the Commissioner Mullally amendment to
Okay.
my amendment for the $500 to come back to the city.
Okay.
Unspent funds to come back to the city. Okay, any other discussion on the motion that's been amended once? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Heffner?
are we amending, or are we voting on the amendment?
No, we're voting on we're voting on the amendment that's been amended once.
Okay, so nay.
Okay. So that is passes 3-1. All right. We're back on to the ordinance itself with 2 amendments now. Any other discussion? Are we ready to vote then? All in favor of the project signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. The ordinance carries with a 3-1 vote and 1 absent. All right, next item on the agenda is under new business is an ordinance to amend the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 2.32 acres, property known as Wema Station Number 10, and being found at 7980 Central Pipe, map 96, parcel 21.01, and part of a parcel 4603, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary.
Wait, okay, are we on 10-2?
We're on,
Or
I'm waiting for a motion on 10-1.
Oh, 10-1. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Motion.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second. All right, it's on the table. Any discussion?
Is this the Wilson County Fire Station?
It's 10-1, first item under new business. Yes.
Okay, I am a little concerned about this. First of all, where's the plan of services that goes with any annexation that we always do? I've not seen that.
That's usually a second reading, I believe.
There's not going to be one because we don't have any plan for any services that we can give, number one. Number two, the only reason they're wanting this is so that we'll run sewer over that area. And there's no reason for us to do that. There's no service that we're going to provide that they can't provide for themselves.
Well, being annexed and whether we run sewer are 2 different questions.
Well, that's the reason for them wanting to be annexed.
I understand that's the desire.
Yeah.
Typically, annexations lead to expanding sewer at the applicant's cost.
Well, it may be at the applicant's cost, but at this point in time, we've got enough to take care of in the middle of Mount Juliet without going out that far south. And their only reason for doing this is to go to the fire station and then from the fire station on further south over to some area over off of Goyle Road that is not serviced by anybody. And they were actually talking about running the sewer itself and running it and paying for it themselves in order to get more development in over there. I don't believe that that's a proper request for them to be making to us. And there's really no reason whatsoever to annex it.
Any other discussion?
But they can run sewer. I mean, they can connect to the sewer without being annexed,
Sure they can.
ultimately. So a
And they can enjoy the
benefit-
100% surcharge that goes
not
along
what
with it.
That's not what our resolution says that we passed.
Right, well, so the benefit of annexing would be.
May I? Well,
Yes,
one
ma'am.
benefit for annexation would be that they would build a building according to our standards rather than their typical metal building. So that's one benefit that I see for annexation, minus your issues with the sewer and extension.
If that's the only benefit that we get out of it, that they're going to build it out of brick, that's kind of sad. I see no reason whatsoever we need to be annexing over there right now and growing out in that direction when we're not capable of taking care of everything we need to be taking care of in the middle of Mount Juliet at this point. We need to be concentrating on what we've got. We've got sewer that is not connected. We have people who are not on sewer in the city limits that are over here off of Page Drive, Larson, in that area. We've got sewer in Commissioner Trevette's district on Lebanon Road that they don't have sewer over there on Lebanon Road, which is a high-end business district over there. And there's no reason for us to be going over and going outside of the city limits or providing sewer to the south end over there just so they can develop over there. If we did this, we would be doing it for a select group of developers is what we'd be doing. And I don't believe I don't even believe it's ethical.
But the sewer would, I mean, we're not voting on a sewer. We're only voting for an annexation, right?
The reason for the annexation request is for the sewer. Don't convolute it.
So just to annex at this point, would it cost the city any extra money?
It would cost the city any service that we provide to them. I can't imagine that our police department or our fire department would service them, and I'm not sure if Andy would go pick up their limbs. That would be a cost of annexing. So it's for the services that we provide is what they'd be charged for.
So, Mayor, I guess my question would be, what exactly does this benefit to the existing taxpayers for the city of Mount Juliet now? What benefit would that be to the people who are in the city of Mount Juliet? And I submit to you that it would be zero benefit to the city of Mount Juliet to annex a building. That's not to mention it's about as close to spot annexing as you can get, spot annexation.
Well,
But would-
it's not, I wouldn't call this spot annexation. This is a request of the applicant here to annex that property. So, I mean, anybody's welcome to put forth a request for annexation. We've approved a lot of them. The other alternative is if you want to go down the path of what happens after annexation, which is a sewer request. If the sewer is denied on this, then what happens to the project? We could all say, well, we don't care, that's outside the city. But you may wind up being an impact to the city if we wind up doing something with a septic system out there or a step system or something else on this thing. We got water quality issues that could. I'm just going hypothetical on next steps, but that's one benefit to the city.
Well, I'm going hypothetical as well. And one of the things that I have heard is that we should be taking every opportunity that we get to slow some of the growth down. And what we would be doing by this annexation in itself would be allowing sewer to go to an area and increasing the level of growth in that area. I think, what I have continuously heard is that we need to slow down a little bit and catch up. Now we're running sewer, we're going to annex a spot and we're going to run sewer, or somebody's going to run sewer to it, which is going to open up more development in the south end of town where we got a road that stops at Central Pike. And then we're about to put an interchange in, but that interchange is going to be so far down the road, it's not going to be of value to anybody that's living here now. It's going to be more of a liability. We've got to catch up with the infrastructure.
Sounds like you're proposing that we reconsider the last item we just voted on.
No, I'm not reconsidering anything. I mean, we're talking about difference in service, and this service over here on Nonneville Road is different, completely different. And you don't know that unless you know the plans and you know some of the background that goes on over there.
It isn't the biggest
This is a
complaint
fire
about,
station.
Yes, this is.
It's not just a fire station. Again, you can't convolute this. If you don't know the facts and know what's going on behind the scenes, then you're not going to know what the plans are behind it.
but isn't the biggest complaint about stop developing is building more homes?
Again, if you run sewer over there, that's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate target, is to get sewer to that side of Central Pike so they can go on over onto Guil Road and some of those other outlets over there to build homes. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. But even if it's not annexed, they're going to run the sewer anyway. I mean, they're going to ask to be,
They can
are they
ask.
not?
We passed a resolution saying that we want people to annex before we extend sewer.
Okay. Wouldn't another benefit be that they would be paying property taxes?
Who?
Government
No?
entities don't pay us
Okay,
property tax.
all right.
I mean, at this point, 16 cents property tax doesn't cover the cost of our fire
Well, I know.
department. That's another conversation to be had. So I don't think adding additional people just so we can tax them is a good idea either. I don't think we need to go there.
But if we see this as being future growth, and of course, the landowners are going to do what they want to do with the area, and if we can provide, again, what we all talk about, at the beginning of this meeting, which was safety and a service, and we have that, then that should be something that we should be planning for the future. We can't predict what the what the landowners are going to be doing, but we can be at least providing a good service for what's out there for these folks that currently live there. Right?
But we can also slow the process, not the progress, but the process down.
But that's just if we talk about the future growth. But right now, what we're talking about is the safety of the homeowners that are currently out there.
That sewer is not going to provide them with safety.
No, us voting on whether or not if this is going to be there or not,
What, the fire hall?
Yeah, the fire hall.
Is the fire hall not going to be there, Joe? I guess are you here for them? Mayor?
Sir.
So there is not an opportunity for them to put a septic system in? I thought there was. I was told that there was.
Good evening, Joe Haddix, 2305 Klein Avenue. So to back up a step, we've kind of, with this project in particular being obviously the county and the city, trying to coordinate everything. We've run a site plan, y'all probably know. We've already received positive recommendation, unanimous on a site plan approval for this site at planning commission level through the city. Didn't ask for a single variance. Building looks awesome. Really matches the second site the county's trying to do over off of at Kurt and Clemens. So that's one aspect of it. Sewer, I apologize, but I'm gonna have to correct you on one thing you've been saying, Vice Mayor. Running sewer over to Gwill, we're running east, coming up Central Pike.
Correct, but you're going to be coming across Central Pike from the existing pump station
up to South
to
Mount
the Smart
Juliet
property.
Road, up to South Mount Juliet Road.
Right, and then you'll be running east, but then there will also be an opportunity for you to run actually west or even south.
If you run south, you're moving that pump station.
So you're telling me that there is no intention at this point to run sewer over to Gwill Road and provide additional growth over there?
I'd have to pick up that entire pump station and move it south, just the way, if you know that area, I know real well. So that creek is flowing south. So it should be at that basin, and that pump station is set up to pick up all this property. Andy, correct me if I'm right. That pump station that's in there has been sized to pick up this entire basin flowing to it. If I were to go southwest to Gwill, I would have to move that entire pump station to Gwill Road because that creek's getting lower and lower.
Lower elevation.
Yep. Sorry. Kind of beat that one in.
So you're not going to build another pump station?
No. I mean, we are literally trying to bring that sewer up Central Pike, serves this site. It also serves some users at the corner of South Mount Juliet Road and Central Pike who've been trying to get sewer service for how many years, Andy? 2 or 3, right?
How many? What is the cost associated with running sewer from the pump station to that site and eventually down to?
I would tell you, similar to our discussion at Windtree, that the cost is really irrelevant. At this point, nobody's asking the city to contribute to the construction of the sewer. We just want access to the sewer.
So we don't have any idea of what the cost is associated with that?
I do have one. I honestly thought it would not come up tonight. I can provide that at second reading for you, though.
Do we have, you know, how many feet it is from?
It varies. We've met with Andy and
Andy,
his
do
sewer
you know?
consultant. Final plans are being developed now based on that meeting.
Maybe 1,500 feet, 2,000 maybe?
2,000 feet from the pump station where it exists right now, crossing over and then heading east, correct?
I'm going to say 2,500 feet.
Okay.
Final answer.
Well,
Half
this,
mile.
this is all good information, but the item on the table is the annexation of that property. Being annexed, as many long-term Mount Juliet residents know, is no guarantee of sewer service.
I would like to make sure that we know that Mr. Haddock said that there is no plan on running any sewer that they put in over to Will Road. And the only reason that they would run $1.5 million sewer line would be to serve a $3 million station, WEMA station. I'm not real sure that makes any kind of common sense, but
Well, I mean, the way,
it's called a bait and switch is what it is.
well,
but-
from where I sit here, if they want sewer at that station, the cost is on them to run it down Central Pike, just like we would ask anybody else to do who wanted sewer expanded. And I think the applicant's aware of that.
Y'all can get ready for this one.
Well, getting ready as, are we ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay?
That passes on first reading by 4-1.
I'll tell you.
The next item on the agenda is 10-2, an ordinance to rezone property known as 12234 Lebanon Road, map 53, parcel 99, from single-family residential RS40 to commercial retail center, CRC.
Motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I believe that shows unanimous. Next item is 10-3, an ordinance amending Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as zoning regulation ordinance 2001-29, adopted 10-8-2001, as amended by amending Article 3, Uses Regulations, Sections 3, 1047, provisions applicable to commercial activities. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right, it's on the table. Any discussion?
Sheila, are you gonna read the letter? I think we got some input.
From Mr. Lineberry,
Yeah.
if y'all would like me to.
Is that your request?
To read it?
Okay.
Yes.
Dear Honorable Commissioners, you are well aware that I have expressed my opinions in the past with regard to the proposed zoning amendment. It appears that this version of the amendment would apply only to commercial CG properties which border residential zone properties. I still don't believe this does anything to accomplish the stated goal. In fact, it could have the opposite effect. One of the largest tracts of CG zoned land happens to border the Mount Juliet Little League Ballpark, which happens to be zoned residential. We also own that CG zoned land of tract next to the ballpark. Currently located on this property are Enterprise Rent-A-Car and a small auto mechanic, as well as several other small businesses. I can envision a scenario where this tract of land could one day be redeveloped with a convenience store or something similar to Christian Brothers. But while this amendment will not do anything to stop a new mechanic from reopening the same building, it would put a stop to a redevelopment of the property. This is just one example of the positive development that could be stifled by this amendment. As I have said time and time again, if we truly see this as a problem and want to get serious about fixing it, then we need to focus on attracting and incentivizing more appropriate businesses to come to Lebanon Road and open up other areas in the city for these car businesses to locate. I think we can all agree that there is a need for automotive businesses to be in a community. We all need a place to buy cars and get our cars serviced, and these businesses are thriving here. None of us like that they are all concentrated on Lebanon Road, but this is a creation of poor planning on the part of the city for decades. This amendment does nothing to address the real issue, and it doesn't seem like a genuine attempt to correct anything. I would happily volunteer to help organize a committee to study the issues and come up with suggestions for the BOC to consider. If we are serious about tackling these issues, then there needs to be some real time put into this decision. A few minutes at a workshop might help get the issues out in the open, but it is not going to solve this dilemma. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration. Mark Lineberry.
All right, can we get a map, Travis, of the zoning map put up on the board?
He's
So-
prepared.
Hmm?
He's prepared.
Yes. The way I see it, what the initial request was is exactly the same. The only difference is with that group of businesses that would be proposed to be eliminated from commercial general, which is the dark red color from city limits to city limits. It's not just a mile stretch. It's from city limits to city limits, and it extends the entire 2.25 mile of Lebanon Road. So the only difference is that it says this group of restricted businesses that would be removed from commercial general, it says that those could not be adjacent to a residential property. That is the only difference that I see. So if you look at the map, the white area is the county, and it looks to me like it's all residential. There's a few sections right in the middle there that would not be adjacent to residential. I tried to get another map to show the zoning of the county area. Can you put that next one up? That's blown up right there. Anyway, I think, well, let's see. I think the yellow part is residential. Anyway, the point of it is, a lot of these areas butt up to the residential areas. So I'll just come out and say it. I'm not going to support it because I believe this eliminates competition and it regulates the free market. And that I just can't support it.
Yes, sir.
First of all, that's a great soundbite. Good job.
Thanks.
No problem. I would also question, is there any commercial general property in District 4?
No.
Oh, okay. So the only residential or the only commercial general that you found was just in mine and Commissioner Trevette's districts. Is that
Yes,
correct?
and that was from years and years and years, decades ago, how it just came about.
So I'd like to bring something up because I know this has been brought up prior to this this conversation today, which was the city was going to be looking at bringing on more staff to hold these businesses accountable for bringing their buildings up to, standard. So I believe that was going to be the discussion of making sure that we, hold these business owners, accountable. So for me, this seems like just a small little bait and switch to me. Again, for us to, tell these folks that, we're going to condense everything in the red right up there. Right now we're able to spread it out between 2.5 miles roughly. If the market should be able to support that. Currently right now, this idea, it sounds like from what you're saying, Jennifer, is that everything's going to be condensed in that small area, correct?
Well, it would just totally eliminate, hold on, where's that list? Jennifer, can you read the list on number G?
Sure. So it would basically limit auto body repair, paint shop, auto services, boat dealers, car washes, motorcycle dealers, radiator and muffler shops, recreational and utility vehicle sales, service and storage, tire sales, retreading, and repair shops. In your ordinance, it says auto dealers and auto towing service, and that's my mistake. It's already a prohibited use, so it would just stop at retreading and repair shops.
Okay, so what it's saying is all those dark red areas from city limits to city limits, those businesses would not be allowed with the revision now saying, first of all, they wouldn't be allowed at all. And with the revision saying, if those dark red areas, if it's one of those businesses is adjacent to a residential area, which as you can see is just spread out.
Yeah.
A lot of them do.
I have a question for the city planner.
Sure.
What exactly are the changes, if you could just summarize between this and the first time this was presented? Is it just the residential component?
Just the residential component. The first ordinance that came through prohibited strictly these uses from commercial general. This ordinance provides a supplemental provision that would prohibit these uses on any lot that abuts residential.
So that's the only difference.
Yes,
So it's basically the same ordinance minus a few parcels.
minus a few parcels, yeah.
Did you think we wouldn't notice?
I actually was working with the commissioner for this
God.
district, so we worked on it together, and I felt like we had a very productive work session, and Mr. Martin has hired additional help as stated in the work session. So this was not intended by staff to
Understand.
pull the wool over anybody's eyes, just so we're clear on that.
Commissioner Heffner.
Correct my memory, but I thought we were going down the road of supplemental use on these and not pulling them out.
Conditional use, wasn't it?
Sorry, conditional use.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought we were going too.
I thought that was in the first reading. We talked
Right,
about
but,
tightening the language around.
That's correct. But when we went and had our work session, we presented you several different city supplemental provisions, and we
Right.
left the meeting not having them go to conditional use permits through the Board of Zoning Appeals, because that would just be an additional step. Like Mr. Lineberry and Mr. Robinson stated, that would just be an additional step for them to have to do. So you guys directed us to work with those guys and the commissioner of the district to shore up the supplemental provisions. And several of those cities that we presented you had the supplemental provision to prohibit against residential or limit.
So we didn't expand the supplemental use beyond
No, just that,
the
residential,
residential.
correct.
So is there anything for the new code that says if a business should leave and a new one comes back, is there anything there for the residential to help divide up that property? Because I know there was some discussion about some type of fencing or.
So if a car lot, well, let's say a auto body repair shop leaves and one could move right back into it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, what I'm saying though is that let's say there's a gap in between there. Obviously, this ordinance is saying that it's going to, if there's a gap in between those two businesses,
It's 30 months.
30 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that right, Charles? 30
But now
months?
that's or an actual change of use where they move it from like a tire place to a flower shop.
Sure.
Kind of thing.
Sure. Okay. All right.
I got to tell you, I'm not real thrilled with this. I don't think I could even vote for it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm the sponsor of this, and I wanted something put on here that would start regulating and stopping some of this stuff. But to just give you an example of some of the stuff that's allowed, okay? And I want you to think about whether you want this in your district.
No, I understand that. Yes.
Okay, I'm talking all vehicle repairs shall be performed within an enclosed building. Temporary work may be performed outside as long as it's performed within a yard fully enclosed with opaque fencing and not visible from off-site. All damaged vehicles shall be stored with a building or within an area fully screened. Buffers required everywhere or elsewhere in this ordinance shall be provided. No storage of vehicles shall be permitted for periods in excess of 30 days. These are things you would think would be common sense and that you would not want in your district. Now, I've had them in here for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this is not anything that's new to anybody. I started talking about this in 2000, in the year 2000.
Sure.
There's various recordings where I have said that Lebanon Road looks like Dickerson Road, with the exception of some features normally found on Dickerson Road. I'm not going to say that tonight. I want that changed. And I've been up here trying to get it changed for all this time, and everybody wants to holler about the free market. Well, nobody's going to find anybody more free market than I am. I am a conservative Republican, and I believe in the free market. But this is also one of those deals where government cannot get it done. And I've got people over here on Lebanon Road whose property values are suffering as a result of the inactivity of this city commission. And I'm sick of it.
I thought
It's time we start putting some of this stuff together to try and fix the problem.
Well, that's why we are hiring more staff in order to hold these businesses accountable to clean up the road.
Okay.
And like you had stated before, with the fencing's behind the property. Okay, they're not going to be putting fencing out on Lebanon Road to be able to hide these cars. They're actually putting it behind. Just like if there was a Firestone, they're going to either put put the cars inside the building, like they've done with my car last week when they had to do an oil change.
If you'll go down Lebanon Road now and look,
yeah,
there are several down there right now, the repair shops that are storing their places outside.
And that's why we're hiring staff. Okay.
But we can't require them to do it because nobody's done anything for the last 20 years. This is not any of the slap at this commission.
Listen,
okay?
I understand that, but this is where we're
Sorry,
drawing
Mayor.
a line in the sand to be able to clean up Lebanon Road. And this is an industrial parkway, an industrial strip. And this industrial strip, is going to support it, then that's
Commercial.
This is not industrial.
I'm sorry.
It looks
commercial.
industrial,
Excuse
but
me.
it's not.
Excuse me. Yes. I apologize, but I'm kind of getting a little frustrated too, because this topic has been going on now for the last 2 months. And I think really what it boils down to is the fact that, we're trying to slow down these businesses that are coming in and being profitable. The market is going to either push you, either you give you a profit, or else it's going to close you down.
I was told that in the year 2000, actually. Same thing.
And how many businesses closed down since then?
Oh, several of them, and they come right back with a
Exactly.
vengeance because that is the lower valued property. So, Mayor, I apologize. Didn't mean to hijack this.
Well, to me, it's just the
More
bottom
passionate
line
about
of
this.
government trying to fix a problem or allowing the free market to fix itself. So the letter that Mark Lineberry had sent to the Planning Commission that was not even discussed, to me, proves the point of how the free market system has already improved Lebanon Road over the past, 5, 10, 15 years, whatever. So it's working. It's just a process. It's heading in the right direction.
Okay.
So when government interjects and puts.
You'd have a whole lot more credibility if all this commercial journal was in your district as well.
Well, I'm sure, but it's not. I mean, I can't help the way the city had laid that out initially.
I can say I represented District 2 for almost 10 years, and I had a very unattractive spot there, and Commissioner Trevette takes over, and what do you know, it's being torn down and it's being redeveloped. So we'll give you credit for that, but that's a good example of one lot improving that, we seen for 10 years. But this question for the city planner, I thought we removed several of these uses a few years ago.
The only uses that are currently removed are auto dealers and auto towing services. Several years back, these other items were removed, but were put back in the ordinance. Were replaced back into this ordinance.
So that's what feels like
I know it's kind of a
been here
boomerang.
before.
It was, and Commissioner Justice can go over a little bit about the history on that if you would like to, Mr. Justice. Remember the auto body repairs?
The auto body, there were some other pieces that were put in there and were taken out by accident, which would have prevented Christian Brothers from coming in. So, and that Christian Brothers is an example of something we would love to see in there. Not a problem with it. The O'Reilly's I don't have a problem with O'Reilly's, but there are some others up there that just don't fit the bill. And
I think our city manager's waiting to lay in.
Mayor, I totally understand where the vice mayor's coming from. Somebody's worked here for a long time. I think a lot of this is going back to even similar to what we're doing with the floods. It was just it was well intended at the time when a lot of these buildings and structures were approved many years ago, and some of these businesses got in there and they got grandfathered in. Also, it probably wasn't working quite as hard as what we probably should have on codes. So I want to commend the commission for stepping up and giving us that extra body. We have hired that person. That person's been on the ground with Mr. Potts, been working tirelessly probably for the last 2-3 weeks, I guess, and already making some impact and working with people like Mr. Robinson, Mr. Lineberry, and others. And a lot of work to be done. You're exactly right. A lot of that Probably could have been addressed much better in the past, but I will say this, the new development that is coming in with the requirements, what I'd like to see us do is a little bit better job from the staff level, not that anybody's failed, of working with some of these businesses on the importance of curb appeal and cleaning up their shops. We see that a lot even with projects that have come in recent years, as we have, and I've talked to Ms. Hamlin about this, is we have a landscape ordinance that says you have to put it in and before you can get your CO. The problem is, once they're there a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and all of a sudden the landscape isn't as important to them anymore, they don't maintain it. And those are things that we're seeing that we're going to do a better job of addressing from being proactive. Because what happens is you would think that any good business would want to keep those things looking good. But in reality, even this weekend, my wife had taken some pictures of the local business that she had saw, and it's sad. And everybody understands the importance of curb appeal. And if anything, the ladies really do. That's the things that we tend to look for.
Now that happens in my district.
Yeah, and but that shows you how quick something can go down, because that's just a starting point. It's sort of like Sir Robert Peel's broken window theory, which Captain Chandler and the police department, others would understand, is if you allow that one thing to start before you know it, it morphs. So I can promise you we're going to do a much better job of that. And it comes as a result of the support we're getting from this commission and giving us the staff people that we need to do. Because like you said, if anybody can do anything in a moment and somebody else sees that that person's done it and it gets further down, before you know it, there's 50 people doing it. I think you'll see a big transformation in the future, not only with the new development, but also with going back and cleaning up some of those areas that Vice Mayor Justice speaks to. So.
And this is the reason also, by the way, I asked for, and of course, hats off to Andy Barlow and the folks, getting the sidewalks and working through that process. Now we're going to get the lights put in. One of the things that I would prefer not to do, though, is I'd prefer not to have those lights illuminating really ugly buildings. So anyway, moving on.
Thank you, Mayor.
But I see it improving.
Yeah.
Slowly, but improving.
Commissioner Heffner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick comments. One, I want to clarify something. We do have zoning areas in my district that do allow for auto uses.
Bless your heart.
So make it sound like we don't. We do. I think we missed an opportunity on the supplemental. I think it could have been a little bit more stringent on those guidelines. I'm not sure how that fell through the cracks. That it just came about that residential, abutting and residential. I think we definitely missed an opportunity there. In saying that, I can't support pulling out businesses, these uses from the zoning, because to me, I'm of the fundamental mindset that you need competition to replace those older businesses. I'm going to drive into a Christian Brothers before I'm going to drive into somebody that's not a Christian Brothers every time, all day long.
Anybody in particular you're thinking of? Or?
There's several of them.
Really?
But pulling those uses out is not going to solve the problem.
No.
Is it because of the way it looks?
Yeah, because of the way it looks.
That could be part of it.
Are we ready to vote on this?
Yeah, because it's fixing to go in a really scary
Part of
direction.
it is
If
parking,
not,
actually. There's no way I can get my vehicles in some of those places. They got cars scattered everywhere.
All in favor of this ordinance signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
No.
I would ask if we could to have our planning staff go back and revisit this under the conditional use conversation that we had. So there's at least another layer of enforcement that goes along with it.
I say we give the team that we just hired an opportunity to clean up the streets.
Well, they better get going because there's a lot of cleaning up to do.
And I say we give them that opportunity.
Matter of
that we
fact,
just
I'll
spent
bring up
money into
pictures
this.
for them.
Yeah. I say
Well,
we
I
give
know
them the
Marty's been
opportunity.
very busy.
The next item on the agenda is 10-4, an ordinance amending Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as the zoning regulations. Ordinance 2001-29 adopted 10/8/2001 as amended by modifying Article 8 Overlay Districts, Section 8, 201.1, Part 4 Regulation of Plan Unit Development Regulations to general zoning subdivisions or other regulations, variations on equal satisfaction of public purpose, and Article 8, 2071 minimum size of residential PUD plan unit development districts.
Motion.
And I'm on a second after reading all that.
So
I would go
I had to read this 5 times and then send emails to make sure I'm reading it right. So I was. So Jennifer, can you just bottom line?
Sure. So basically in October, I believe it was, the commission passed an ordinance to require RM16 and RM8 PUDs come in with a 20-acre gross minimum. So at that time, we were under the impression that there was no opportunity for a developer to ask for a variance. Well, it turns out that there actually was. And so this is just us cleaning this up. Like I said, the way that the regs currently are written, the BOC can waive that minimum gross requirement of 20 acres. And this amendment removes the provision and will ensure all RM8 and RM16 PUDs be the 20 acres as required. And this actually does not apply to anything that we have already submitted, contrary to popular belief.
I thought we had a conversation that the 20 acres was going to remain for RM16, but for RM8, it would be lowered to 10 acres. That was our conversation here at the table the night that this was passed.
I haven't been approached by any of you guys to lower that. The minimum is 20 acres.
I thought it was for both.
It's for
It
both.
is for both.
It was for
Yeah.
both. What we were talking about though was, and my objection was that you've got a lot of local people that have been here for a long time that have held on to smaller tracts of land. I mean, 10 to 12, 15 acres. And those people would like to put townhomes on there, not apartments. Apartments on that kind of density on a smaller tract is just crazy. Wouldn't work. But there are a lot of people that have held on to land over a period of years, hoping to be able to develop a townhome project, which is more attractive than the apartments would be. And so the conversation was, the townhome section would be able to be put on something of between 10 and 15 acres. The apartments, no. That's kind of where we were talking. Now, that conversation was had, and we were talking about changing that after the election. I don't know what what further conversation might reveal along those lines, but
Well, that was, you're correct. That was one of the things brought up. I think one of the things that was said was we would have to separate the
two.
Separate the zonings on those between rentals and for sale. So I think that's where it got left.
You guys were nervous about, for instance, the problems that you're having in your district with rental companies coming in or those townhomes being.
yeah, where they're coming in now anyway,
And it's
right?
really hard for us as a city to regulate that. So that's why you guys chose that at that time to leave it at the 20 acres.
Well, I'll say, based on what we have on the table here, this was the guidance that I believe I was given that night when I asked the question. I believe our city attorney told us that we could not offer a variance on this anyway. So voting on this, to me, doesn't change anything other than what I already thought the reality was.
Right. I agree with you 100%.
Well, that's what Charles was saying that night. Of course, Gino's beat him severely on the arm
I
since
think it
then.
was
But
actually Gino.
Let me get the mic on and you can say it
I'm
again,
fairly certain
Charles.
it was Gino.
Yeah, and to your point, 50% of the table down here is wearing casts, so I don't know what goes on.
But I just
Shane,
wanted to
whatever Andy
reiterate
did to you, we're
again,
sorry.
I just wanted to reiterate again, we do have one application tracking through and it would not apply to that one.
Can we ask who that is?
It's Mr. Gasada here for Pleasant Grove Townhomes.
Okay.
I will tell you, I'm a little uncomfortable with not being able to ask for somebody not to be able to ask for a variance. Because, just to be honest with you, we're the guys that are elected. And, the planning commission have all the respect for them. The only one actually that is elected, that is a city elected person, I believe, is Commissioner Heffner.
Mhm.
So, I think the planning commission goes by rules. I hate to hear the planning commission say, I think. That drives me nuts. They're not supposed to think. They actually have a law in front of them. Their feelings shouldn't play into it. Once it gets past them and comes over to us is when the decision is ultimately made. There's not one of them except for Commissioner Heffner has been elected. So I have a little problem with them not being able to be brought to the city commission. And it's almost truthfully as if a variance is not brought to us and we shut that down, The truth is, yeah, that's just putting our elected responsibility onto non-elected people, and I don't believe that's fair.
But this is no variance at all. There's,
Yeah,
That's what I'm
there
saying.
would be
This
no
eliminates the
opportunities.
variance.
They
Yeah,
would
that's-
simply have to follow the rules.
okay. Commissioner Heffner.
I voted for this at the Planning Commission, primarily for the reason we really want to entertain tens of, hundreds of applications for
I don't think-
apartment variances, because that's
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
I mean, I see where this is going already, but I'm going to go ahead and plug this in just for a point of contention here that, if somebody comes in and they got 19.8 acres and it's a really nice project, do we really want to say no without any opportunity to even look at it?
Well, we wouldn't have to say no because they couldn't apply. So
Correct. It's
there
never
we
come
go.
to us.
Yeah.
That's my point. Exactly. Maybe they come to us and say it's 19.8 acres.
Well,
This
see,
is
they would-
awesome. This is great.
they
But,
would know
well,
the
you'll never
rules
see
of-
it, so it doesn't matter.
They'd know the rules up front and they'd know they need to acquire 2/10 of an acre more.
Okay.
Did you have a comment?
No.
I have one more.
Apparently I don't have a comment, or I'm not allowed to have a comment. I guess is what it boils down to. So, well, I mean, like, look, this is what it boils down to, in my opinion. Okay. Since I wasn't elected, I was appointed, but, this right here will, in my opinion, again, basically eliminate the board from having to give those variances, plain and simple. I mean, if that business owner, like, the mayor just stated, if they have 19.2, then they need to go purchase more land. Then they will be able to take care of that. But we see what's happening with some of these other apartments, just like you say, I stated earlier in your conversation, which was you want to help slow down some of this growth. Well, this right here is going to help slow down some of that growth, right?
What I'm talking about is planned growth. Okay, right now, we don't have any planned growth. It's whatever you throw on the wall and what sticks is what we wind up putting and building.
That's what I stated earlier with that, the whole conversation with the sewer line. Planned growth. Nothing's planned yet.
Okay, my point exactly.
Mr. Heffner?
We can pull the R8 out, RS8, correct?
We would do that with another ordinance. If you want
Okay.
to change the minimum lot size for RM8.
I'm not suggesting we do that tonight. I'm just saying,
Right.
is that?
Yeah,
that's-
it's totally doable. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we ready to vote? All right. I'm just voting for what I thought was already the case. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1.
We're going back to Kevin
Thank you,
Mack
guys.
days.
Next item on the agenda is 10.5, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance 2025 to include a $100,000 emergency disaster grant to the Mount Juliet League for repairs due to the flooding that occurred March 2021.
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second, okay.
I would, Mr. Jonowski is in the back, our president of the league. If we have opportunity for him to
Okay.
come up here.
I'll let the sponsor speak first if he chooses.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a repeat of
Come
what
on
I
up.
mentioned earlier. I went by the ball fields the day after the flood and was shocked and awe of what I saw. I do recognize the fact that they basically build ballparks on the side of a creek bank. And I do recognize the fact that when it floods, the two biggest expense items usually get damaged, the dirt and the fence.
Concessions.
All that being said, this couldn't have happened at a worse time. Their season was starting. Mount Juliet League has been around since, 1968. Now, that, by the way, was a good year for me personally. The citizens always step up, as Vice Mayor Justice said earlier. The citizens are always helping citizens. I think in this case, and given the timing of the event, I think it's time for the city to give back. This is a nonprofit organization. Their estimated damages are $250,000. They do have a GoFundMe, so they are trying their best to try to raise that capital. I don't feel like the city needs to burden 100% of that cost. I feel like, $100,000 is fair and reasonable. I am speaking to some other corporations that reside inside city limits to maybe bridge the gap there. I think it's time. I mean, they've saved the city millions of dollars. Their operating budget is $500,000 a year. That's all done through collections of application fees, through donations, through concession stands. So they're doing everything they can. So if you add up the numbers, it's probably $6-7 million they've saved the city. So I think it's time for the city to help, and this is a good way to do that.
Sir?
Yeah, my name is John Ranowski. I'm the park president down at Mount Juliet League. I think Commissioner Justice, Vice Mayor Justice, and Commissioner Heffner have spoken well so far about our need. One thing I think it's important to point out is we're still dealing with the remnants of last year, a pandemic. Our numbers are down. We also had to deal last year with a windstorm and tornado. We had damage substantial to certain aspects of the park that we had to deal with. Not only, as Commissioner Heffner mentioned, our budget is usually about $500,000 a year. A large portion of that is concessions. Our concession stands were completely decimated in this flood. So we're going to take a big hit financially this season. Just getting the concession stands up and running, it's going to have a big effect on our budget. Numbers are down, as I mentioned, with COVID. That hurts. We've got a lot of damage, but one of the good things, back to the community aspect of it. I don't live in Mount Juliet. I'm a resident of Davidson County, but I was down there the day of the floods, or when we were watching the flood waters recede. Commissioner Justice was there, Commissioner Heffner. And somebody drove by and they said, the best part about things like this is that it really brings the community together. And the outcry of support, the community is absolutely amazing. You go down there today, it's still in disarray, but it's a million times better than what it was. We appreciate the city, considering this. We are a nonprofit. We provide a valuable service. We have 2,500 kids come through our park every year. And the average cost per kid is $220. We charge $145. So that puts us at a deficit every season of $187,500 right off the top. So we have to make that money up through sponsorships, through concession sales, and as I spoke to my previous point, we're at a tough position right now to make that happen. Field repairs and fences right now are our first and foremost. If we can get those back up and running, then we can have a season, and then we can start using the money that we bring in to make the other repairs as we go forward. So thank you for consideration on this.
Commissioner Heffner?
I wanted to make this point earlier, but thank you for coming out and speaking. Strongly encourage long-term, if that's a place that's a desirable location for baseball fields. Ultimately, it's up to your board to decide long-term planning, but there's got to be higher ground around this city that, and maybe some conversations with Rocky can spark some ideas there. But I'm going to be honestly hard pressed to support this in the future, given that we know there's a history of flooding that takes place there, and it's not if, it's when. So I just encourage you to think about that long term.
I completely agree. And, we know that we have a responsibility to be good stewards of the community's money. We've obviously raised, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of about $45,000 through private contributions from corporate entities, and then the GoFundMe, where, a lot of people have just donated money of their own. In doing so, we've been in consultation with one of the largest athletic field construction companies in the Southeast. And one of the issues that the park suffered from in the past was that our our fields, while they were maintained well and they functioned, they weren't of the best construction. The soil was really sandy. So when the floodwaters run through, that sandy material washes. So we were advised in this case to, we can, there's some things we can do on the construction, at minimal cost. But so we're trying to make sure that what we put back will be the best product for the kids, but also will, I know it's going to happen, but it will hopefully function a little bit better than what we dealt with in this case. So, but yeah, I agree. I mean, being in a floodplain definitely has some disadvantages. So.
I was talking to Rob Porter about, he's very familiar with the ballpark down there. He was saying that there are some things the city can do, or the ballpark rather, because it's not profit, can do in that southeast corner down there where most of the water seems to be coming from, where it jumps at the bank. Rob was saying there are some things that we could do that to help with that. You can't completely block it, but that the Corps of Engineers would allow to be done. So I thought
Actually,
maybe,
if I could
okay.
jump in here, Mr. Dronowski, president of the park down there, is also an engineer.
Okay.
And he does a lot of this work. He and I have talked about this to a large extent. There are some things, very expensive things that have to be done. There's a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through, and I don't know whether or not I know the park couldn't pay for it. Now, I also want to clarify something. We have two types of floods at the ballpark. One of those types is where the water comes over the berm, kind of settles in, and kind of seeps down and recedes and goes away. Those happen probably every other year or two or three. Okay. And the park was established in 1968. There have been 2 floods since 1968 that have caused the kind of damage that you've seen to this degree. One of those in 2010, and then this one. Now, have we had other floods? Absolutely. And we're going to continue to as long as we're in a floodplain. You said there's probably higher ground. There is, and there's a flipping house on top of it. Everywhere in this city, if you've got land that is worth building something on that is up out of the floodplain, there is going to be somebody building a house in it. To try and find something that there's not buildable is expensive, as we looked at, buying 11 acres here recently for $2.3 million. Now, some ridiculous pricing going on. So, we're where we are. We just spent $450,000 that we as a park, I signed the note, and we put lights down there at that ballpark. This is the second time that we spent upwards of $200,000. But again, the second time in 52 years. It is the location. It is what it is. And if the city wants to provide us with a different location and provide us with the funding to go in and put lights up and do all those wonderful things, I'm sure that we as a board would be tickled to death to do it, because I'm sick of water going over the fields. So, but we're not in a position we can do that as a park without charging a lot of money to these guys. But I said it earlier and I'll say it again, the fact that all of y'all were down there at the ballpark, and every time I saw your face, I will tell you, Scott Heffner was on a skid steer and spent a lot of time on that skid steer and worked his tail end off down there, and it's appreciated, buddy. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I saw
It was my pleasure.
Commissioner Mullally down there in the concession stand with rubber gloves on, and it was appreciated. I want to make sure you understand that. So there's a lot of history that goes into that ballpark down there. A lot of it. I played down there in '68, the first year it opened, and I've been down there pretty much ever since, my entire life. So there's a lot of love that goes into that ballpark, and I just appreciate this being on here so we can help these folks out, these kids out. Thank you.
My daughter played on field 11 when she was 7 years old, and she's 20 now. And I watched her catch a line drive right at her face. She was playing shortstop, and she got the game ball that day. So that's a very special memory. I have that ball sitting on my desk in my house. So, but
a lot of memories that ballpark's provided.
Absolutely.
Well, we're getting a little bit off this subject with berms and other land that's not going to be captured in this ordinance tonight, I don't think.
Oh, come on.
You're adding another
But
zero, huh?
I appreciate you, Commissioner Heffner, bringing this to us. This is definitely an emergency need on this. I'd like to bring up some other needs. We got a couple other organizations in the city that don't rise to an emergency need as it's in, but I think we have an opportunity to help out some others. If I could, I'd like to have our Parks Director come up here and speak about a proposal that I've gotten word of.
How you guys doing, gals? Yeah, what we're doing, this kind of took the wind out of our sails for the upcoming budget. I got with the park staff, and we were planning on, I'd been reached by 3 of the organizations, representatives for 3 of the organizations, and they were in desperate need. With the coronavirus hitting last year, it about shut them all completely down. We had a tornado last year, hurt them. Then we've got floods this year. It's kind of pushed the calendar up on us a little bit. What we're planning to do in the Parks Department, we were going to have an appreciation day in July. And in a part of our budget, what we were wanting to do is take all 3 of the organizations, being the youth football and cheer, Mount Juliet League, baseball and softball, Wilson United Soccer. And what we're going to try to do is surprise them with a $100,000 grant out of the Hotel Motel Fund, presented them by the Parks Department and the city of Mount Juliet, just in appreciation. I myself coached at Mount Juliet Little League for 19 years, sat on the board of directors there. I know what it's like there, guys. I was coached in youth football. I was on the board of directors there. And you live by fundraisers. That's what you live by, volunteers and fundraisers. And it's just hand to mouth. And these places, being a parks director, I realize what's going on. That's how come I appreciate them so much. They've saved this city millions and millions of dollars. For we don't have to staff it. We don't have to maintain it. We don't have to do anything. We just sit back and enjoy it. And they bring our children up. It's about the kids. Everything in the parks, us, is about the children. And it's what they represent and they bring to this city. All of you here probably played ball at one of these organizations. And to me, we owe them a deepest gratitude there is. So what we were wanting to do is just step up as the city of Mount Juliet and the Parks Department with the hotel motel tax and give them all $100,000. It's just a drop in the bucket to most of these guys. Mount Juliet Little League or Mount Juliet League, I can't get used to that. I mean, 19 years of Mount Juliet Little League, but I can't get used to it. But $100,000 to them is just going to seem like a drop in a bucket. But to me, it's a start. Same thing with youth football. All of their lights are out. Their fields are in disarray. Field enhancement there. Wilson United Soccer. We're bringing soccer back to Mount Juliet. 300 to 400 of our kids go every year and play soccer in Lebanon. That's a disgrace, guys. We need to bring them back home. We need to put fields up here. And by doing that, if we do $100,000 to Wilson United, they're going to build 2 good fields down there. It's going to bring our kids back. And so I think today is a chance to make this a great day. And let's just vote. Let's go ahead and give these guys this $100,000 each, and let's get them going.
Well, I'll make a motion to amend for a total of $300,000 out of the hotel motel fund to go to these 3 organizations.
What?
And of course, none of that withholding the $100,000 to the that they need immediately.
So say that again now. Is that in addition to the $100,000 to the league?
No, that's
come on.
a total of $300,000.
Could we not actually just put a dollar amount per child per head that is actually enrolled in these programs?
Hold on, we don't have a second or?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I second that.
All right, second. Motion's on the table.
Yeah.
Dollar amount per child.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, for instance,
Yeah.
we've got 2,800 approximately kids that come through our park. Football is going to have.
They're at 1,000.
They're at 1,000.
And Wilson United.
You're actually kind of getting ahead of me. And kind of a thought for the grants program is the city coming up with a matching grant fund instead of giving money directly to these organizations, matching a per child.
Yeah.
Set
This is something
dollar
that,
amount.
Commissioner Heffner and I had talked about too.
Well, it sounds like we're probably all on the same page then, but just with the grants program, as we go ahead and still trying to debate, whether one gets 10,000, one gets 15,000, one gets 800 or whatever that is, and trying to justify the differences. Just bring us the count of the kids you have and let us give a set number for the kids. And that to me
exactly what
seems
we
the
talked about.
most equitable way of distributing the funds.
I originally thought about that on this ordinance, but the numbers do vary throughout the year. So I'd heard at one point it was 1,600 and then 2,800.
We have the difference between us and football and the soccer is we have 2 seasons. We have a spring and a fall season. So, and we've got different groups of kids that come in depending on that season. So,
Yeah.
whereas we've got, and John, you correct me if I'm wrong, approximately 1,500 kids in the spring season, give or take 100 or so, right?
Yeah. I think pre-COVID, we were about 25, 26.
We
Yeah,
can't
right.
hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, pre-COVID. we
Up to
were-
the microphone, please.
I thought I was loud enough.
You're not loud enough to be heard at people's houses.
Right.
Pre-COVID, we were at about 2,500 kids.
Right.
Between spring and fall. So, but that varies. But yeah, that's the average.
So, yeah, anywhere from 24 to 2,600 probably it would be a good average. But keep in mind what we're talking about is we would probably go from, 2020 numbers for 2021 budget, or 21, 22 in this case. So we would actually have a.
Could I ask a question, please? Are we talking about the children? Are they Wilson County kids? Or are these Mount Juliet kids?
I was.
Or organization kids?
Just organization kids.
Organization kids?
You're
Okay.
paying for the organization as much as you are the children that are coming from.
That's my
because
thoughts.
There's a lot of economic development that goes into also the numbers that come in for the football and the baseball and the soccer.
Well, we'll obviously have more discussion on that in grants, but the motion on the table right now is 300,000, 100,000 for each of these 3 entities out of the hotel motel.
That's been seconded.
All right, I have a question. Is that money restricted on, they can spend it on certain things or anything they want to spend it on?
Well, it'll be field enhancements. It'll be lights, it'll be pavement, and it'll be building fields.
Park enhancements.
Sir.
Park enhancements.
Yeah, park enhancements.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you still planning the event? We'll do the
Yes,
presentation.
sir. We will have the appreciation event and with y'all presenting big checks to a representative from each organization. I think it'll be great. So give me 5 A's. Let's go.
So we're not voting on
We're
per
voting on the amendment
child, we're
first.
voting
Just
on
one-
this 3.
Yeah, that's a sidebar
Okay.
discussion.
All right.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Now that was the amendment.
Thank you, guys.
That was the amendment. Sorry, we did not vote on the amendment separate from the ordinance. We'll do it again. Vote on the ordinance as once amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same outcome.
Thank you,
Unanimous.
guys.
But
Thank
the
you,
correct way to
Rocky.
do it. So
Yes.
Good
Yes,
call.
thank you, Rocky.
Great suggestion.
Next item on the agenda is an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet Code, Chapter 4, alcoholic beverages to delete Section 462.3 on-premise consumption beer permit issuance requirements and Section 467.10 suspension and revocation of permit authority.
Motion. I'm sorry. I want
I'll-
to talk about this because
I'll second. We got a second here for Commissioner Heffner. It's on the floor. And you're the sponsor, so I recognize you.
I'm the sponsor by default, evidently on this one. This was something that Commissioner Heffner and I had talked about, and he was also going to be a sponsor on this. But what we're trying to do is simplify this code so that we don't have one rule for the state, one rule for the city. And so what we're wanting to do is to take this to a 50-50, basically, which is the exact same thing that the state of
The
Tennessee
state has.
does. Right.
Right.
So that we don't have businesses that are out here trying to comply with, it's kind of like a moving target. Okay, well, for the city, we got to hit this ratio, but for the state, we got to hit this ratio. So it's kind of basically just streamlines the process.
I believe we got a letter. Would you read that, Sheila, please?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to address you via emailed citizen comments. I am concerned about an item on your agenda tonight regarding the elimination of the 5-to-1 ratio food to beer for those holding a beer license. The ratio has been in effect for as long as I can remember. Every mayor and every commissioner and every board of commissioner has supported some form of a food to beer ratio. The elimination of this ratio would be a sea change for the city of Mount Juliet and puts us on a slippery slope. The idea behind a ratio has been simple: discourage and eliminate those who might want to operate a quoted beer joint. Because of the ratio, we have nice restaurants who happen to sell beer rather than the opposite. I realize there are some who would like to go to a bar and drink. They can do that today. Any legal age resident can go to O'Charlie's, the Goat, Corner Pub, or many other places to sit at their bar. Those folks have many options today. However, all of these places meet the beer food ratios and are enjoyed by all patrons. Eliminating the ratio would lead to the opposite. Beer joints like the Rusty Nail, Lucky's Tavern, or others could locate in Mount Juliet. Some of these type businesses have tried to operate in Mount Juliet in the past. They were the source of some problems. Just ask the police department, and the ratio caused them to leave. Why lower our standards? People love Mount Juliet. They feel safe here. They want to raise their family here. They want to retire here. They don't want it to change in a negative way. Please vote against this proposal. Ed Haggerty.
All right. And these letters are included with the minutes as well, I assume.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I just have a comment. This is kind of on the foothills of what we voted on back in November or December about a particular place. To me, it's just catering to one particular place. Everybody else meets the 5-to-1 ratio with the exception of this one place. And here we are again. I won't vote for it because I do agree with Ed Haggerty. This is going to open the door to beer joints on every corner. Maybe it won't. I don't know, but I don't want to be responsible for that.
Well, fortunately, we're not zoned for them on every corner.
Okay,
so-
that's good.
Only in my district in commercial general zoning. So.
I was waiting for that. I really was, man.
Didn't you just support an ordinance to allow for beer sales at 10 a.m. on Sunday?
I did. And the reason is because it's penalizing retail. When people can go to liquor stores and liquor by the drink and get the same alcoholic beverages at 10 a.m.
Is that
So
because
it's
you were following the
penalizing-
state law? Is it because you wanted to follow the state law and go
No,
along with
because
it?
it's penalizing the businesses.
Okay,
Let's
but
stay on the ordinance on the.
But you quoted the state law when you brought it up in the last conversation we had about this. You said that you wanted it to be same as what the state had, is what you said. And
Yeah,
now that we're
because I
proposing
don't
the
wanna
same thing under
penalize
this
those
regulation, you're saying that it's not
businesses.
right. So
But
kinda
this
missing
is
something.
catering
I
about
actually
one
sponsored that.
business.
I'm talking about her comments though. not
Yeah,
your
but
sponsorship.
this has to do with one business.
Okay.
This is clear.
Okay.
It's not clear.
Well,
It's clear to her in District 4.
all right, I'm going to weigh in here on my comments on this. I've been critical of the ratio probably on more than 10 occasions. For the record, I don't have a horse in this race. Couldn't remember the last time I even consumed beer, but I personally don't care if somebody drinks all the beer they want or if an establishment sells 100% beer and no food at all. As long as, one, they're not disturbing anybody, they're not contributing to the crime rate, they're not hurting anything. But I tell you what I do like about the existing ordinance is it does give us some teeth. So if we can find some ground to where we can meet in the middle, people can run a business and just the thing I think it's been said here many times is if people can run their business in a responsible way, I don't really care what the ratio is.
And
I made a suggestion once that maybe we just leave this in place, but we don't enforce it unless a business becomes a problem, and then we can, at the police department's request, do an audit or something. I like the fact of having an enforcement piece on the books, but I mean, when it comes down to the practical business of it, I don't really care what the ratio is, as long as they're running a responsible business and not detracting from our community.
Now, something that I had talked about, Mayor, was that we've got the beer board in place. And they talk about the revocation or suspension of licenses. And so what I had talked about, I even mentioned this to Commissioner Heffner in some of our conversations. We've had some conversations with Charles and Gino along these lines, and that would be that the initial enforcement piece should come from the police department rather than just exactly what you're saying. And so one of the questions that was asked of me was, okay, well, do we have to have a special law for that? No, we don't. We have a public nuisance ordinance that has been in place and is used as a catch-all to some degree, and could be used, if I'm not mistaken, as an opportunity to go in if they are continually committing problems. We've got a law on the books to actually address that rather than have to create a new law and reinvent the wheel. And then once we've had that and it's gone in front of our judge, then brought to the alcohol beverage board or the, what is the beer board? I'm not sure what it's called anymore. What she said, yeah. So it's brought before the alcohol beverage, and if they are revoked or suspended at that time, then they would come back in, and we would also raise the fee for the initial license up to $2,500 to get that taken care of. So then if it's revoked before it could be brought back in, they had to show some sort of compliance plan, and then they would have to also pay for the license to be reinstated with that same $2,500.
Let me ask our city attorney here, what in the scenario Vice Mayor Justice just described, where there being a public nuisance, the police have been involved. I guess they get cited with what?
It would be whatever the ordinance number would be. And I will tell you, all the years that I worked for the sheriff's department, disorderly conduct, that statute, well, that's a state statute though. The city equivalent, the municipal equivalent of the disorderly conduct would be the public nuisance.
Under public nuisance, can we suspend a beer license with our existing code?
You can't suspend a beer license. We can go in and cite them for being a public nuisance.
And then the beer board or the alcohol beverage board would actually make the decision to revoke, suspend.
That's my question. Can the ABB?
And then the alcoholic beverage board can make a decision to suspend or revoke the license.
And you're confident of that? If we remove this catch and somebody is becoming a nuisance,
it's more difficult on the one hand to have the police go in and cite them. On the other hand, it's a lot easier than saying, oh, you're only selling 4 to 1 this year, or you're right there at the razor thin margins. You haven't sold to a minor or done anything wrong. But
that's kind of where I'm going with this. It becomes kind of, I guess instead of having a set standard to weigh it against, you met X or didn't meet X. Now it's becoming, is it just because the neighbor called or something where the same stuff may be going on across the city and nobody else weighs in? That's my concern, is we do run into some difficulty enforcing it.
The city of Franklin did this with 10 Roof 2, I think, last year. They did a public nuisance citation to them, and obviously it was after a string of incidents, not a neighborly complaint type of thing. So when I hear Commissioner Justice say what he's saying, that's what's running through my mind is a situation like that, where there's been numerous formal complaints filed as opposed to a neighbor calling in or something along those lines.
Remember also, and with the police department involved, there's also an investigation process. I mean, they can't just randomly go in without the number of calls being addressed, which are the things normally that are brought before the alcohol beverage board anyway. So this would actually be the police departments. There's your teeth. They've got the opportunity to be able to cite based on and have an investigation that leads up to that citation being issued for violation of the public nuisance ordinance. Now, I would like, and I don't know if there's an opportunity to do this, but I would like that we have, and is there a location in here to do the 2.5 to 1 or 50-50?
We could amend the 5 to 1 to be 50-50.
I mean, that's what I would prefer to do, so that there is something there. I mean, they've got to meet a standard, but it's the same standard as the state.
Would the board support not such a compromise, but a slight compromise at a 4 to 1?
That's going the wrong way.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're looking for a compromise.
I will tell you that when I started talking to Gino about this stuff and Charles, they looked throughout many different municipalities, and the ratios have gone away. You know, the enforceability, should fall to the police department. They're the ones that are on the front lines, and they're the ones that are going to know whether or not the place is committing problem or creating problems or not. An audit process does not necessarily say that because they're not selling 80% more food than they are alcohol, that they're a bad establishment. I think we wind up actually tying up city staff by going through an audit process to be able to make a kind of an assumption.
Which only gets a small percentage value anyway.
Right.
Commissioner Trevette.
So with that being said, though, I mean, to go back to this letter, would it allow, or obviously, we can't predict the future, but, do we see other businesses coming in here, then creating more of a nuisance to our first responders, our police force? Now they have to go in, take their, their time away from other things that, they should be doing. And now they're basically having to clean up the mess that we're actually allowing.
Well, they may still have to go into a place that fits the ratio. So there's no guarantee that changes one way or the other.
And two, if the place is not committing a problem, not creating a problem,
sure,
then they're not going to be going in there. That's kind of, law enforcement 101 is that you go where the problems are.
Yeah, but a local authority having jurisdiction, that's kind of nice to be able to have something that kind of sets us apart from what the state's requirements are. And that's what kind of keeps out some of the stuff that we see in Hermitage, correct?
I will tell you that I spent the last 15 years before I retired as a DUI officer. That's what I did. Didn't do a lot of domestics. Didn't do a lot of the other stuff. It was the DUI stuff. Okay. And I will tell you also, it would take you could go in and drink a glass of wine.
Sure.
Okay. Or you could go in and drink a beer. Or you could go in and take a shot of tequila. All right. You're getting on up there, the more alcohol that you're drinking. So if we got a 2.5-1 or a 50-50 ratio that already applies to tequila, they can already go in there and get drunk on a bicycle and, drinking the tequila. Now they can do that.
Yes.
So, we're allowing them to drink beer. Right. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't believe in legislating morality. That hadn't worked with the drug dealers. We still got them. So
I agree.
Well, the point, to your point too, we pull beer license. We don't pull liquor license. We don't have that authority.
No, state does that.
So when this gets enacted, a 5 to 1 ratio gets, somebody runs afoul of not doing their 5 to 1. What happens is we pull their beer license. They keep operating their business. They can sell high gravity beer, which is just code for a beer that has so much alcohol in it that it can't be considered sold as regularly beer. They can sell liquor. They can sell shots. In fact, what we tell them to do is go get people drunk faster.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would ask if there was an opportunity there to do the 50-50 to put this in as
Yeah, 4-62-3 would read, instead of annual ratio of $5 of gross sales, it would be annual ratio of $2.50 of gross sales. And then we could get rid of the part for except for before 2002, then you're 4 to 1.
Is that the only change?
Yes. I believe that would be the only change.
And I was noticing on here before, shall be required to maintain $4 of gross sales.
That was
Grandfathered in.
Okay, all right.
We need to get rid of subsection F2. That was a recent addition to,
Can we just state it? We just follow the state guidelines? Because that could change.
Well, I don't know what the language is in the state guideline that would, it might not apply.
Technically, we're following the state guidelines no matter what.
Well, for beer.
Yeah, we're not going to make it any less. Well, we can't grant additional rights above what the state's given us.
No, I'm saying if,
well, tied to state to the, tied to the state, whatever the state does. for-
whatever the state
for
does.
liquor.
I get what you're saying
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and I'm not to disagree with the point, but I think your point was we don't know what it says, and I'm like, it doesn't matter because
We're gonna follow it anyway.
we're going to follow it anyway.
Okay. So I guess I would actually ask if we could to amend it, that we would change that number from, or actually, should we just say that we would follow the state guideline, or should we go ahead and
We
amend
can
it?
just say $2.50 to $1 for first reading, and then when we come back for second reading, we can have something that makes sense rather than.
Okay, what he said would be my motion to amend.
Second.
Excuse me. All right, it's got a motion second. It's on the floor. Charles, can you repeat your motion that Ray made?
Well, for the purposes of first reading, it'll be $2.50 per dollar, and prior to second reading, it will be modified to reflect what the state does for liquor by the drink, and also eliminate subsection F. And also amends 4-6710. Correct.
Well, I'll say I can support both of these. I can support them tonight, but my support on second reading is contingent upon knowing that we have an enforcement factor that we can actually enforce going forward on this.
And that would be what we're talking about being the public nuisance
Yes.
ordinance. So if the police department received, and we've got the deputy chief back there, if the police department receives numerous complaints, are you comfortable with the enforcement ability to go in and cite them as a public nuisance? Yes. He said yes.
Well,
thumbs up.
All right, any more discussion on the amendment? All right, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, that passes 4-1. All right, we're back on the ordinance amended one time. Any other discussion on this? All right, all in favor of ordinance 10-6 as once amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
It passes first reading by a vote of 4-1. And congratulations, we completed the ordinance portion of the agenda and we'll move to resolutions. We have two here. 10-7, a resolution authorizing execution of a contract between the city of Mount Juliet and Collier Engineering for design of the Mundy Park improvements.
Motion.
Second.
It is on the table. Any discussion, questions, or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Number 10-8, a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract between the city of Mount Juliet and Kimberly Horn for on-call professional services.
Motion.
I'll second.
Andy, can you kind of explain what that is?
Able to speak better to that one.
Commissioner, do you have any questions in particular you want to ask about?
No, just for the public so they know what we're voting on.
So Rocky, I am the city engineer and I've tried to help Rocky out as much as I can, but Andy gives me a good workload to begin with. So in the best interest of the Parks and Rec Department, it is advisable that he have an engineer on call to deal with any situations such as the flooding at the ballpark. I know they have got a couple other projects down the pipeline that they need exclusive consulting ability if me or Andy are occupied with other duties from the city. So he's basically having an engineer on call or engineer for any type of issues that they run into.
Director Lee.
I got the rep here if you want to speak to her. She can tell you exactly what they'll be doing. Alicia Ely.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. You said it well, Shane. Essentially, we will be available to provide any design services related to parks. I know the board was so gracious for our community to purchase new parkland. Those need to be master planned. We can provide that. Any construction documents, if the board approves any funding for implementation of those master plans, any projects due to flooding or what have you, are just available. We did submit an RFQ and were selected through the city's procurement process for that and available to do any design services related to parks needs.
Is your public survey still open?
For the master plan, it is not. We have since closed that.
Okay, I'll take that off my website because I had
Thank
that on there.
you.
Okay.
I would say, actually, Kimley Horn has done amazing work in Mount Juliet. Every time that they've ever come in here and done anything, I've always been very impressed with them. That being said, I would like to know what criteria was used to choose them.
I used the same thing that they used to choose the one with the fire chief, fire station. It's the one Dana Hire gave me. Shane set in, we set a panel together. It's the same thing we used to choose the fire station engineering team. I don't know what the format was. It was a scoring system. I had Dana Hire, the finance director. Mr. Shane here was also on, myself, and John Oaken with the Parks Department.
I can speak to that, Rocky.
Okay, go ahead.
So criteria in this instances are related project experience in general in the area, personnel assigned to the project, letters of recommendation. This is a pretty competitive RFQ. I think we have, what, 7?
Yeah, we had 7.
7 different engineering firms across the metro, the county area. And for a contract like this, I think the city got a very good selection of who wants to come do work with us. And, it wasn't just me that read them. Rocky read them. Dana read them. We had 3 people that read them, and we all ranked Kimley Horn as number 1. So they did a tremendous job. And Alicia's local as well. She lives in Jackson Hills, and that's also a byproduct of the selections. So speaking as an engineer, I think Parks got a great consultant as an on-call engineer.
All right, we ready? Are we ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. That's the last item on our agenda. If there's no objection, we are adjourned.